Greetings and welcome to Unit 14, Public Opinion and the Media in Texas. In this lecture, we're going to discuss why public opinion is important and the beliefs and ideologies that shape public opinion, what is the media, and analyze the relationship between the media and those in power. We have a lot of ground to cover, so without further delay, let's dive right into this. Okay, so what is public opinion? Well, it's the collection of popular views about a person, an event, or a new idea. So we could think of this, right, in the context of asking what the majority of us think of is our favorite restaurant to go to, or what's our favorite style or genre of music. But most often or not, we put it in the context of politics, right? So we're asking, we're looking at presidential approval ratings, right? Do we agree with the job that the president is doing? We can ask the question of, should we use military intervention? What is our view about using the military to intervene in cases of genocide, for example? And there's a host of other government questions we can ask, right? What do we think about this new upcoming candidate for president? Or what do we think about the stance that Congress has made so far? Or the job that Congress has done too? What do we think about the decisions that the U.S. Supreme Court has issued? Whatever the case may be, there's a host of questions involving politics that we can ask. Now, before we continue on, I want to take a moment to talk about public opinion in the context of, it's impossible for someone, an institution, for a polling company, whatever the case may be, to ask every one of us what our opinion is about a specific issue. It's nearly impossible to do that. But let me ask you a question. Right? Let me ask you a quick question. For those who enjoy cooking, specifically enjoy cooking soups, right? I have one question. Do we have to drink or eat the entire batch of soup to know if it needs salt or pepper or something to that effect, some kind of seasoning? Do we have to drink the entire bowl, the entire batch to know that? No. We get a tasting spoon and we grab a sample of that opinion or of that soup. Right? Same thing here. We don't have to measure every one of our opinions to know in general what the majority thinks, if that makes sense. I digress. Let's move on to how and what we base our public opinion on, right? And most of us, we base it on our beliefs and attitudes, right? So beliefs are closely held ideas that support our values and expectations about life and politics. Okay? Attitudes are affected by our personal beliefs and represent the preferences we form based on our life experiences and values. I don't need to say, right, that we have different life experiences. We absolutely do. And that's one reason why life is so fun, if you will, right? That I've had different experiences than you have. You've had different experiences from others, right? But that experience, while overall it may be similar, it's not quite yet the same. So our expectations about life, about the values for which we have, our life experiences impact that. It impacts that, right? So we have differing views and differing opinions based upon the differing experiences that we have had. So this can kind of help us understand, right? This I've had different experiences than you, and you've had different experiences from others, can kind of help us understand maybe some source of conflict between political parties, between those on the left and those on the right, right? I'll still go far to say that we are all striving for what we believe is right, until I'm proven otherwise. Right? But the question of what is right, right? The question of which direction is that? That's the question in debate, right? But if we understand that these life experiences for which we experience, which you have different experience than I do, this shapes our belief structure, right? And our values, specifically our political values. Yeah. I digress. But these attitudes and opinions, though, they have to come from somewhere, right? We're not just born with them, are we? No, we're not, right? So let's talk about political socialization, okay? Political socialization is the process that we are trained to understand and join a country's political system. Now, before we continue on with political socialization, I want to take a quick moment and tell you a quick story. This story involves a friend of mine on Facebook. Like all great stories, of course it starts on Facebook. I'm kidding. But it did happen on Facebook. A friend of mine posted an image, okay, of two parents with their child. And when I say child, I mean like 8 years old and under, maybe as young as 5 years old. Like, so we're talking child, okay? And this child held a sign that was very derogatory. It said, "F the police." Now, regardless if we support that or not, put that to a side for a second, okay? Let's not lose sight of this point here. Put that to a side. But my friend made the comment of basically, how dare these parents do this? This is highly inappropriate. And I chimed in. I offered a different perspective. And I said something to the effect of, we may disagree, maybe, with the content. We may disagree with that particular protest, maybe. Put that to a side and acknowledge for one moment that these parents are teaching their child, when they have a problem with the government, when they perceive a problem, what should you do? And that is to protest. They were teaching that child how to become politically involved. And for that alone, my hat goes off to them. Right? I cheer them on. I celebrate that moment. Now, again, put the politics of what that sign said and of that particular protest to the side just for one moment, okay? And acknowledge that that kid was learning firsthand how to engage in our political system. And that right there is important. That's important. What is more American than apple pie? The answer is simple. Protesting. Right? I mean, it's baked in our DNA. It is baked in our history, deeply within our history. And again, it's protected by the First Amendment of the U.S. Bill of Rights. I'm digressing, but the point here is we are taught how to engage this political system for which we have. We are taught this. And there are a host of people that can impact that process, right? Everything from family, friends, to educators, to social groups like churches, peer groups, etc. All these different, I said it already, but even education, right? The fact going to school, whether we're talking about K through 12 or if we're talking about higher education, this has an impact on us. We are taught how to engage this political system. In the simple fact, they were teaching that kid how to engage. Again, my hat goes off to them. Right? All right, so let's move on here. So this process, this political socialization process, right? This begins in childhood and it continues on into adulthood, impacted by new circumstances, ideas, and events. There's a lot we could talk about with this alone, right? We could talk about new circumstances, ideas, and events, right? Case in point, I'll try and make this brief, okay? Can you imagine? Let's engage this. Indulge me here. Take your opinion, whatever your opinion is about, I don't know, abortion, okay? Take that opinion, right? Like write it down real fast, okay? Write that down. Whatever your stance is, okay, whatever it is, write that down. Now, after you write that down, answer this one quick question. If you had a family, okay, if you got married and you had, kids, would that event, that is having a family and having a kid, or having kids, right? Could that impact what your opinion is right now about abortion? Now, I'm not saying it will, but what I am saying is, for some, that answer may be yes. It could. Another example. For those of us who remember September 11th, 2001, that's a day that everything changed. Everything. I know for us today, it's kind of hard to think about a pre-September 11th America, but for those of us who remember, September 11th changed everything. I'll make this short. That day, we learned that we weren't invincible. That we learned that our foreign policy can potentially have consequences. I'm not saying that in a bad way, okay? What I am saying is simply this. America changed fundamentally. It's hard to think about that, but we did. We often think of ourselves as being, in a safe spot. We have the Atlantic Ocean to the east. We have the Pacific Ocean to the west. We have a neighbor to our north and a neighbor to our south. Friends. We're surrounded by friends and 2 large swimming pools. We're fine. That was our mentality until September 11th. That kind of opened the door. That kind of opened our eyes, if you will. So events like that, it could be personal events, like having a family, or it could be national events, or it could be an election, like the 2016 presidential election, for example. That moment, that election had a significant and profound impact. We saw within the Republican Party moderates being kicked out of the Republican Party, and they became basically politically homeless. What did they do? Where did they go? They still have a voice. They want to use that voice, but they're kicked out of their own party because the direction that party is going to does not match with what they think. Right? So we saw a lot of moderate Republicans drop out of the Republican Party because of that 2016 presidential election. Some of them were kicked out. Others it was a protest to that direction that the new GOP was going in from their point of view. The point I'm trying to get at is events, circumstances, ideas, this can all have an impact on our understanding of our political system. Okay. So this process, if I don't need to say it, right? I don't think I have. Maybe I have. This process is ever ongoing. It's ever ongoing. It does not stop. Political socialization, it begins basically the moment we can comprehend, and it ends, in my opinion, when we pass away. Because all events can have an impact on how we think of our political system. Whether it's something personal, or whether it's something happening at the national level, or even at the state level, it can have an impact, a direct impact, on how we think about our political system. Now, so let's move on and talk about political ideology. Okay, so political ideology are attitudes and beliefs that help shape our opinions on political theory and policy. Political ideology is attitudes and beliefs that help shape our opinions on political theory, how we think things should work, and public policy. And that's interesting to know, right? Ideology. This is different than party affiliation, but there is a close relationship, right? Those who tend to lean conservative tend to vote Republican, exactly. And those who lean to the left typically vote exactly Democrat, right? So there is a relationship there, which helps us understand political behavior, voting patterns, for example. So that's ideology. Now, ideology may change steadily, slowly as we grow older, but it's unlikely to have significant change. True, life circumstances can throw a curveball and can interrupt this potential gradual change, but we're not going to see what we won't see is a complete change of opinions in ideology. Now, that's not to say that an event can't happen that let me give you a case in point. Someone can be, for example, pro-life, and at the same time support Roe v. Wade, right? So their stance on abortion has not changed, but they saw value in the privacy protections that Roe v. Wade provided. Does this make sense? So this idea of complete change, no, maybe not. It may happen. To say that it won't, I think it's going too far. Right? We may see a significant change, but in general, overall, what we tend to see typically, maybe some subtle changes, maybe some new nuance is introduced, but we don't see a complete 180 change, if that makes sense. No. And research polling has indicated that we are far more polarized today than we have been in the past. Now, I've always spoke about branding the other side as the enemy. Okay, I've always spoken about that, but I want to hammer that point maybe just a little bit more because it's worth repeating. Right, like in a boxing match, right? In a boxing match, those two in the ring are opponents. Yes, they're there to win. Right, one of them will win. Right, so it's their job to push against, to hit against, to dodge, to outwit, to outmaneuver, right? The other to win. But they're not there to kill each other, right? Right? Push against, yes. Kill, no. To annihilate, no. To destroy, no. Right? We're far more polarized. So what is polarization? Well, it's basically the gap between the left and the right. Okay? This chasm between the left and the right is growing so much that there is no other sides other than left or right. Right? This chasm is so large that there can no longer be a moderate voice. That you're either left or you're either right. Either you're with them or you're with us. And that language, that branding the other side like this is dangerous. I've always spoken about those dangers, right? So I'm not going to rehash it completely, but just note that this polarization, this chasm between these sides, the more polarization, the larger this chasm becomes. And that's problematic. Not only for governance, but also for extremism to be introduced on either side, right? Because let's be clear, we're human. We are capable of extremism, right? Whether we're left or whether we're right, or whether or not we're in the middle. Human history, human behavior has demonstrated time and time again, we are absolutely capable of extremism, right? And this chasm, the larger it becomes, the easier that extremism can, let me emphasize this again, can be introduced. And that, again, that's problematic. So let's move on and talk about the effects of public opinion. Okay? Public opinion and elections particularly. So elections are the events on which polls have the greatest measured effect. Now, it can be asserted here that polls do more than show us how we feel on a particular issue or project who might win an election. Now, that's often what we think about public opinion, right? We often think of it as a temperature gauge of what we think, right? Taking our temperature here and now in this specific moment in time. We often think about it as, who's going to win? Well, let's take a look at the polling data, right? Yeah, that's true. But it can do more for us. It can help us, particularly help the media, determine who they are going to interview. Which candidates are they going to interview for, during prime time when most viewers are watching? This is significant, right? Because we got to realize that the media doesn't just randomly choose who to interview, right? Specifically, when we talk about candidates, it's not arbitrary. It's not random. Polling data can give them indication on who might win and therefore who they should interview. And that's a big deal, right? That's a key in helping us. Because after all, and we'll talk about here in just a moment, about the agenda setting power of the media and how important it is to know and make that decision which candidate to interview. We'll talk about more of that in just a moment. So the effects that public opinion have specifically on government, well, this relationship is actually muckier than that between polls and elections. So on the one hand, elected officials, they are aware of public opinion. They are. Oh, they are. They are aware of public opinion. But sometimes what we think, the people think, doesn't always impact the outcome of government. That is to say, policy outcomes. That is to say, bills, legislation passed. It doesn't always have an effect. And depending upon which level of government we're talking about and which branch of government we're talking about, public opinion may have no impact whatsoever. Case in point, the U.S. Supreme Court. They are not elected. They are appointed. And because they are not elected, what we think has no merit to them, if that makes sense. They're there for life. So it doesn't matter what we think. We can protest as much as we want. They simply don't care. And I don't mean to say that in a harsh, like in a cynical, dark kind of way. I don't mean it like that. I just mean to say they're not affected by public opinion. Legislators, judges that are elected, they're aware. Public opinion, they are aware. But again, though, that doesn't mean that we're going to see outcomes, policy outcomes, that match what we think. Not always the case. And since they are aware, they may make adjustments to certain behavior while in office. And this is so critical for us to understand that if there is some behavior that a candidate or an elected official is demonstrating that we simply do not like, do not tolerate, do not appreciate, we have concerns about, whatever the case may be, and it doesn't matter who that candidate may be. The louder we are, we the people, public opinion, about being honest about that behavior, about how bad it is, or how unacceptable it is, or how the louder we are about that, adjustments might be made, not only by political parties, but those specific candidates. It could have an impact on that. Not always, and depends upon how loud that public opinion is about that specific behavior. Right? But they are aware, and if they want to get reelected, right, they're going to pay attention to what the majority says about their behavior. Does that make sense? Because they seek reelection, right? They seek reelection. They want to get reelected. So if the majority are saying, hey, this type of behavior is problematic, they're going to make some adjustments to that. Does that make sense? Yeah. All right. So now let's transition and talk about the media. Okay? The media. Specifically, what is it? Well, mass media is the collection of all forms of media that communicate information to the general public, which include television, print, radio, and the internet. Okay, so it is this broad, right? This broad, wide definition here of anything that communicates information, be it print, television, radio, or the internet. Right? One of the things I like talking about regarding the media is that this is a profession. That there are professionals within the media. Journalists, reporters, they report what's going on, right? One of the things I like to do is I like to grab like a set of keys, for example, like my car keys, right? And if I grab them real fast and I toss them lightly, but I toss them in your general direction, right? What could you say about that? What could you say? What's the news here? Right? Well, the news is that I tossed my keys. Right? That's what happened. But how can that be interpreted? We're going to come back to that in just a moment. Right? We're going to come back to this. But just note, though, that reporters and journalists, they are, in fact, professionals. You can get a degree in journalism, right? And there is a sense of conduct that is acceptable and unacceptable. Case in point, there was a journalist that worked for a news organization called Al Jazeera who shared some anti-Semitic viewpoints on social media. Al Jazeera fired them. It's that simple, right? So it's a profession just like any other profession. It's a profession just like, nursing or being a professor or being a teacher or even being a legislator or even being a lawyer for that matter, right? This idea, or a doctor, there is accountability within the profession, right? I'm digressing. We'll come back to that thought that I had. Just give me a second here. So the news media serves 4 functions. And then the news media fulfills these 4 functions, and they do it quite well. Okay? So the first is platform. Right? The news media provides a platform to candidates and to political parties. They give them an outlet to send out the message. Right? For those who are musicians, right? Musicians are placed onto a platform to be elevated, to make sure that the music can be heard by everyone in attendance. Well, that's what the news media does for candidates and political parties. Elevate them to get the message out. Right? I mean, after all, candidates, they are running for election, after all, right? I mean, so they need to get the message out, and we need to hear that message so you and I can make a determination, do we agree with it or not? Open forum, right? This is an open forum to the public, where we the people, right? We get to provide feedback, whether it's through debates, town hall meetings, or whether it's through public opinion and polling in public opinion polls. This gives an open forum to you and I, the public, to tell elected officials what we think and to have an open discussion about whatever political issue is going on. It provides an opportunity to have public debate. In short, that's what it does. And the media serves this function quite well, by the way, quite well. All of these functions. The media serves as an educator, whereas the media informs us of what's happening behind closed doors. Listen, I love politics. I don't know if you can tell, but I love politics. I love political science specifically. But as much as I love this, I can't be in Austin and in Washington at the same time. I can't do that. I'm only one person. But so the point I'm trying to get at is I can't watch what's happening in the Texas legislature, just like I can't be watching at the same time what's happening in the U.S. Congress. But the media does. And they can inform us of what's happening. Other informative functions, right? For example, the media lets us know, especially local media, they let us know of major disasters like tornadoes or hurricanes that are approaching or other local disasters that are happening. Right? They inform us of what's happening and what's going on. Right? And lastly, the watchdog. Yes. The media serves as a watchdog. Yes, the media can be in Washington and in Austin at the same time. And they can be paying attention. And if there's a problem, they will notify us. Very similar to any of you who have a dog. Any of you who have a dog. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm about to say. Right? Your dog will let you know there is something going on behind this door. If USPS or UPS or FedEx or anyone with a package comes to your door, your dog will let you know something's going on here. Pay attention. Look over here. Ruff, ruff. But you get my point here. The media does the exact same thing. Hey, there's corruption going on. Hey, there's an issue going on. Hey, we need to pay attention to this. Hey, ruff, over here. Right? I'm kind of making light of it, but you get the point. They alert us of what's happening. Okay. All right, let's move on because we got a little more ground to cover. All right. So the media does set the agenda. They have what's known as agenda setting powers. Okay. The act of choosing which issues and topics deserve public discussion. The media sets that tone, sets the topics for us, I should say, right? So this could be, just take a look in recent times, right? The war in Ukraine, U.S. gun violence, impeachments, whether we're talking about the state level or if we're talking about the national level, abortion, right? And there's a host of other things, right? There's a host. Well, the media helps us kind of sift through that a little bit and helps to identify what we're going to talk about with our friends, with our family, with our neighbors. Even as I would say as far as say what we talk about in class, right? But I digress. With social media, however, this agenda-setting power for which the media possesses is actually weakened. I mean, look no further than think about the things that go viral, right? Memes, things online that go viral. It's we the people, we drive that discussion. We share that content. We make it go viral. Right? There's that. Also, take a look at the power that those who are elected or those who are seeking election, take a look at what they can do with a Twitter account or with a post on social media, any social media. They can set the stage to drive the conversation about drive the conversation not only in terms of the political discourse, but in terms of what the media is talking about. Let there be no mistake. Anyone who can rally up or anyone who can use social media to advocate and to push an agenda of any kind, whether it's Republican, Democrat, left, right, I don't care. Those who use it effectively can set the stage, can set the agenda of what topics we're going to talk about. And they can do it overnight with a simple post. Right? So we can see that social media is weakening this specific power that the media has. Talking about social media, but we can talk about how anyone with a cell phone, and I mean anyone with a cell phone can be a citizen journalist. That is, we can use our cell phones to take images, to take photos. Same thing. We can use our phones to take video, photos, and we can upload that. Here's an interesting thing about cell phones. Cell phones, they are so powerful because it's a word processor and a camera and a video camera and a microphone all in one. You can record a video. You can take pictures. You can write up a news story on your phone and post it on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or whatever the case may be. Right? You are a journalist in a way by communicating a story, whether that story is what you're having for dinner that night, or whether that's a posting of a song that you recently found that you just want to share with everyone. Whatever the case may be, you are sharing information with the masses, right? Or at least with the public. So you can be a journalist just with what's known as a citizen journalist, and you may be doing that already right now without even thinking about it. Right? Uploads may go viral, attracting the attention of the mainstream media, but there are some dangers involved here with social media. And those dangers include living in an echo chamber and absorbing propaganda. Okay? That is something that we need to be aware of. Right? An echo chamber is exactly what it sounds like. I only want to hear opinions that match with my beliefs, my ideology. So therefore, I will listen to those who agree with me, and I'm going to kick out everyone else who disagree with me, who argue with me, who debate me. Right? That's an echo chamber, and that's dangerous to live in. We need to have exchanging of ideas. We need to have that. And that's not to say that your opinion is going to change. No. What I'm trying to get at is by exchanging your ideas, by exchanging other ideas, by hearing other ideas. Number one, you learn how to argue your point of view more accurately, articulately, and more. You learn your opinion better. And maybe you'll convince someone else that your point of view is correct. I'm not saying you will, but I'm just saying that the opportunity is there. Meanwhile, if we just live in an echo chamber, that opportunity is non-existent. And of course, propaganda. What is fake? What is not? But can we actually discern that? And now that's a point coming up here for something else. But just note, right, this idea of absorbing propaganda. That is to say, state-generated, sponsored, but only that's partly based in truth and mostly not. Right? This idea of propaganda can be quite dangerous. So let's talk about news and opinion and analysis, because this is extremely important with the media. Okay, news covers the who, what, when, where, why, and how. The media covers that. Okay, journalists covers this. I don't care if we're talking about Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, BBC, Al Jazeera. I don't care. ABC, NBC. I do not care. Journalists talk about and they cover this question: who, what, when, where, why, and how. That's what a journalist does. Where the bias comes in is not from the journalist. It's from personalities that are giving opinion and analysis. They are the ones that filter the news. That is the who, what, when, where, why, and how. They're the ones that filter that into biased talking points. And the question for us is, can we discern the difference? Can we discern the difference between opinion and news? Can we understand that while Fox News can tell us the who, what, when, where, why, and how, that's one thing. But the analysis can be biased. Same thing with CNN or MSNBC. Can we understand that when the reporter gives us what's happening, that's the who, what, when, where, why, and how. But the talking heads for any cable news network, those talking heads that are providing opinion and analysis, that can be biased. Remember what I mentioned about the car keys? Okay, this idea that I tossed my car keys. Well, that's exactly what happened. That's the who, what, when, where, why, and how. But can you twist that into, what can we say about why I did that? Why did I do that? I've heard some people say, like, I was trying to prove a point. Well, yes, that's true. That's the truth. But how can we manipulate that into something that's not? How can we take this event and twist it into an opinion that's unfavorable? Right? That's bias. I'm digressing. So, finally, I want to talk about the relationship between those in power and the media. Because this relationship is stressed. This relationship is not just complicated like it's a Facebook status update. Oh no, it's stressed. Okay? And it's been this way since day one. Let me be clear. The relationship between like the president and the media has been stressed out to no end since George Washington. This is nothing new in today's politics. If anything, this is extremely every day. It hasn't changed. Right? So we need to understand that reporting on those who wield political power, whether it's a president, whether it's a governor, or whether it's a Texas legislator, or whether it be a county commissioner or a county judge, those who wield political power, okay, and the reporting on those individuals is not always praise. It's not. Listen, elected officials can do dumb things. They're human after all. But just because they're human doesn't mean that we shouldn't know what they're doing. And sometimes what they're doing is wrong. Not always, perhaps. And maybe you think it's not. But the point I'm trying to make here is when people are in elected office, they are subject to the scrutiny of you and I through the media. And sometimes that's not always praise. Even the best of candidates can screw up. And again, that's fine. But that reporting of that is not always pleasant. Specifically referring to what, especially if it's something you did that was criminally wrong. Okay? Criticism of elected officials is not fake. Let me say it again. Criticism of elected officials, be it county, state, or federal level, is not fake. In fact, I would go as far to say that it is healthy for a free society. Listen, our media is protected by the U.S. Bill of Rights. The First Amendment protects the media from government intrusion, just as much as our right just like our right to free speech, our right to religion. Right? The press is in that First Amendment, and they have access to public officials to let us know what's going on, to be that watchdog. First Amendment protects them to allow them to be that watchdog without government intrusion, without any politician going, you didn't say something nice about me, so I'm going to kick you out. No. And balancing between our right to know, that is transparency, and government privilege. That balancing act is difficult to do. It's difficult. But our right to know versus the government's privilege to keep things in-house. Should you and I know what the U.S. military plans are for, about certain things? No. Right? But should we know what's being said behind a closed door meeting between our leader and another leader? Yeah. I mean, unless it pertains to like national security, then maybe not. But you get my point I'm trying to get at. I am digressing, okay? But this relationship, what you need to get from this is simple. This is nothing new. The relationship is stressed out, and it has always been stressed out. Even at the local and state level, it's stressed out. Because you're balancing freedom with, you're balancing our right to know what's happening with government privilege. All right, y'all. So that concludes this lecture. If I've said anything that's confusing or if you have any questions about, please feel free to reach out to me. And until next time, peace.